Mental Health, the Up&Up. We're trying to make mental health care clear, helpful, and maybe even fun. We're chatting with licensed therapists, but this is not therapy. These are simply thoughts and ideas for you to discuss with your own therapist and to help you on your journey of complete wellness. So, Geraldine, our topic today from our long list is auto-thoughts, automatic thoughts.
Yes.
Not Autobots.
Not thoughts about
That's still
cars.
cracking me up in my head.
And yes, not thoughts about cars, auto thoughts, which is cracking me up in my head. No, automatic thoughts. And those are the thoughts, as the name implies, that are automatic, that happen without the frontal cortex of our brain really processing them. They happen in the part of our brain that automatically responds.
So is this in the same line as the physical auto response of like reflexes when the
Yeah.
doctor knocks you on the knee? Okay.
Yes. Or if I throw something at you, you're going to blink. And don't think too poorly of me, but I've actually done this with clients where I'll hold up a pen and I'll say, I'm not going to throw this at you. And then I'll go like this. You just blinked, Anna.
I did.
We are not in the same state. So yes, it's along those same lines as bodily reflexes.
Okay.
And and just like bodily reflexes, they can be super helpful. Like if someone's throwing something at you, or if you're about to lose your balance, or our body responds without us having to give it much thought.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also sometimes unhelpful or unwarranted, like if I try to throw a pen at you from a different state and you flinch,
Through the
or like,
computer.
right? Or, when I'm driving and a bridge is coming up and I duck, that
Yeah.
it's a physical response which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So sometimes our thoughts don't make a whole lot of sense. Sometimes they make perfect sense. Sometimes they don't make much sense at all. And they happen so fast that we're often unaware of them. So those are the kind of automatic thoughts that we're talking about right now.
Okay. So in
So,
previous discussions on this, the examples we used were green beans for you.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And peas from a friend of yours. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where had a bad experience eating them at one point during their childhood, young adultness, whatever, and now every time they see them, it's a bad, oh no, I hate those.
Right. Yeah. In my experience, when I was a kid, I ate green beans and threw up. So I even understand that that's the reason why I don't like green beans. But still, when I see green beans on my plate, I have this reaction of, those are gross, but it wasn't the green beans. Yeah.
Or even a visceral reaction of your body saying, nope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The other examples we were talking about was I had a brother who was dumped in a Burger King. His girlfriend dumped him in a Burger King. And so he was saying, I'm never going to eat in Burger King ever again. It's like, yeah, that's
Right.
That was his visceral response, because that Burger King was associated with a super unpleasant experience. But his brain and everybody's brain kind of linked those two things together, when really Burger King had nothing to do with why his girlfriend dumped him, I assume.
I hope not. Another one that is super common, and unfortunately there are memes that reinforce this, is name association. You meet somebody named Andrew who is a total jerk.
Yeah.
And now every single Andrew you meet, you have this reaction to.
Yeah. And again, that's an automatic thing. In a lot of ways, that makes sense. I poke a wasp's nest and get stung, and my brain says, oh, don't poke a wasp. I can't say the word. Don't poke a wasp's nest again.
Right.
That automatic revulsion makes perfect sense. The
Mhm.
Burger King, not so much, you know. So when counselors talk about things that to you as a client don't seem to be related to what's going on in your life currently, the reason they do that is to kind of try to hunt down whether automatic thoughts have anything to do with what's going on in your life. That simple example
Mm.
of the name, if you're married to whatever name you said, Andrew, and your marriage isn't going well, if some of it is because every time you hear his name, you kind of have this response from the Andrew you knew in fourth grade who picked his nose or whatever, then we want to
Right.
clear that up, and then you can make a decision about whether the Andrew you're with is someone you want to be with. So, so that's why counselors kind of dig into that. Um, and
That's why you have the stereotype of all counselors want to talk about my childhood.
right, we don't do that because we just like revisiting people's trauma. We do that because, like the green bean trauma, sometimes those
Mhm.
past traumas do affect us in ways that we're not fully aware of. So we
'Cause
kind of
it's
want to
automatic.
revisit. Right, exactly. We want to kind of revisit not only the traumas, but just like the repetitive messages or um, the the erroneous messages that we have during childhood. Um, I remember
Mhm.
thinking, hearing about someone getting fired when I was a kid and thinking that meant they were set on fire. And right? That wasn't a particular trauma, but in my head, getting fired has like this extra fear to it,
Mhm.
I don't still believe that that's what happens when you get fired, but there is that kind of little bit of that response. So
Mhm.
some common ones are things like, uh, my mom was always critical of me, therefore, every woman's going to be critical of me. Or I was told, that if I didn't brush my teeth, or if I ate spinach, I'd grow up big and strong. If I didn't brush my teeth, that would, ruin my life. Or, whatever. All those things that kind of got repeated to us or that we believed for another reason, either trauma, repetition, or just kind of just normal life.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's kind of hard to figure those out. So, um, and actually, all those little tests that people have, uh, the kind of people associate with psychology, like I'll say a word, you say the word that immediately comes back. So if I say black, Anna says,
White.
I say big, Anna says little. I say blue, Anna says danger. Then we kind of know there's a problem there,
Mm.
right? Or if I say,
Yeah.
right, yeah, if you say green beans and I say vomit, there's some automatic thought, right? Yeah, there's some automatic thought that we're missing. So when people come into counseling with issues like they're fighting with a lot of people, or they have low self-esteem, or um, things worry them that maybe they shouldn't worry them, like they're scared to drive or they're scared to be around people. A lot of time those are because of some automatic thoughts that they're not aware of. So um, the way that one of the ways that counselors kind of try to help their clients figure that out is to kind of keep a chart, kind of try to keep a list of your automatic thoughts, and then kind of look for patterns. So um, what a counselor might ask you to do is if you get upset or feel anxious or get into a fight or get depressed or whatever issue is coming up with you, to afterwards stop and you write down the situation. Like, I saw the color blue, someone cooked baked beans, whatever it is. And then write down kind of like your immediate thought, like as if you were a 2-year-old just reacting to it. So, like
Mhm.
if someone cooked, actually it was string beans, not baked beans, but if someone cooked string beans and I write down like a 2-year-old, ew, gross, those are disgusting. I don't want those. I hate green beans.
Right.
Um, you, right. So you write those down and then you ask yourself 2 questions. You ask yourself if that's true and you ask yourself if that's helpful.
Mm.
So, is it true that green beans are gross? Not really. Is it helpful to think that green beans are gross? Not really. And if it doesn't pass both of those, because some things are true but unhelpful, we're going to die
Mm.
someday. That's true, not super helpful to think about. And some things are helpful but not necessarily true, like I'm the prettiest girl in the world, or uh, you know, I I'm an amazing counselor. That might be helpful. Don't know if it's true. Um, so you ask yourself those 2 questions: Is it true and is it helpful? And if it passes both, fine. If it fails even one of them, that's when you want to kind of start looking at that thought and poking holes in it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So um, after you ask yourself, is it true and is it helpful? Then your counselor might ask you then to try to replace that thought with a more helpful, more true thought. And here's where I think a lot of people do things that do something that doesn't make this work very well. So if I go from green beans are disgusting, is that true? No. Is that helpful? No. And I replace that thought with green beans are delicious, my brain is going to kind of reject that because it's going to go,
Right.
no, they're not delicious. They're disgusting, right?
Mhm.
So that replacement thought needs to be um, closer to that negative thought, but true and helpful. So instead of saying green beans are delicious, I can say green beans are delicious to some people. That's true.
Mhm.
Or I can say green beans uh, feel disgusting to me because I threw them up once. That's true.
Mhm.
My brain will kind of say, yeah, all right. Um, Green beans are disgusting, but I have learned to like other vegetables, you know. So you don't want to jump so far that your brain rejects your replacement thought.
Right.
You do want to jump far enough that it is more helpful. And when I say true, maybe a better way to say it would be, do I believe that 100%? So things that might affect people who come to counseling are again, things like with anxiety. It's dangerous to go outside. It's dangerous to drive a car. It's scary to have a person in my life that I trust. It's everyone I trust is going to betray me. Um, so things like that. And then if you examine that and you say, everyone in my life that I trust is going to betray me. Um, so, uh, Anna, in your experience, is that a true thought?
Everyone in my life's gonna betray me? No.
Okay. Is that a helpful thought?
Well, no,
You're
because it's
thinking
not
pretty hard,
true, but
right? But
I'm
actually,
trying to put it I'm trying to put it more in line with some of the things that I have struggled with, like, the world is full of a-holes. That is
mm-hmm,
something I believe to be true.
mm-hmm,
Now, it is not necessarily helpful because not everyone is an a-hole, and I do know that.
mm-hmm,
That is also true.
yeah.
So
And actually, that's a better example than I was going for when I asked you those questions. So, those automatic thoughts tend to fall into some patterns, and one of those patterns is black and white thinking or overgeneralization.
Mhm.
If this happened once, then it's going to happen all the time. Like
Mhm.
if something bad happened at Burger King, Burger King is always going to give me a bad experience. Or the
Right.
black and white, Burger King is either a good place or a bad place. So for the idea that the world is full of a-holes, is that true? I would say not full. So you might replace that thought with there are many holes in the world. And is
Yeah,
that
that'd be fair.
helpful? Yeah, there are many. Is that helpful? In some ways it is helpful to, yeah, to kind of be aware
It
of the
helps you
a-holes
to
in the world.
sit back and evaluate who you're actually dealing with.
Yeah, which isn't a bad thing. So again, you don't want to jump too far from the world is full of a-holes to I can trust everybody.
Everyone is just out to be my friend. No, that's not
Yeah,
my brain's not
that's
gonna accept that. You're correct.
right. Or even to say, I have a trust issue, you know, that
Mhm.
maybe is partially true. And maybe I believe that 50% or 70% or 2% or whatever. But uh, it's not all the way true. Your brain isn't going to 100% believe it, and it's not helpful, to
No.
believe either one. Don't trust anybody or trust everybody, or the problem is me is
Mhm.
usually not 100% true. So,
And
um,
usually not 100% helpful because the problem is me is a spot to get stuck.
yeah. And honestly, the problem sometimes is something you're doing, sometimes is
Mhm.
partly something you're doing, and sometimes, like getting struck by lightning when you're not doing something like, I don't know, swimming in a pool with a lightning rod. It has nothing to do with you at all.
Right.
Yeah. So accuracy is the key word here. And I call it instead of positive thinking, I call it realistic thinking, uh,
Mhm.
which might be positive, might be negative, but it matches what's going on in the world. You know, um,
I think this was a topic of one of the first blogs we released on the website. It's the power of positive thinking. And but this
yeah,
this podcast is a really nice way to delve into that more because
mhm,
you're right. It's not just about being positive because there do happen to be a-holes in the world. Lightning
right,
does happen to strike people. Sometimes
hmm,
green string beans are bad. Like these
right,
are all true.
hmm,
Um, but it's about putting it in perspective and weighting your feelings and your thoughts about it um, in what is actually in front of you.
yeah.
So I
And the
like this.
first way, yeah, the first way to do that is to become aware, to even recognize that maybe there is a reflexive automatic thought back there. Because if you don't know what it
Mhm.
is, you don't know how to fix it. Which
Agreed.
is kind of why we go back to thinking like a 2-year-old and when you see green beans, and instead of saying, well, I just don't like green beans, saying green beans are yucky, I hate green beans, you know.
Yeah.
And again, if you do this kind of several times, people tend to start to see patterns,
Mhm.
that maybe they do think in an overgeneralization type of way. This happened once, therefore it will always happen. Or Anna hurt
Right.
my feelings once, so she's always going to hurt my feelings. You know, uh, uh, falling off a high cliff hurt me once, there, but that doesn't mean falling off of all high cliffs. That was a joke.
I was like, wait, where are we going with this one?
So, kind of to prove my point that automatic thoughts
Uh-huh.
aren't necessarily all wrong, or even overgeneralizing isn't always all wrong, and black and white thinking isn't always all wrong. It's
Yeah.
something our brain does to protect us, and sometimes it helps us and sometimes it gets in our way. Um, and the best way, if you can't figure out a replacement thought, or if your replacement thoughts go kind of too far to the world is full of everyone who wants to be my friend, some kind of simple ways to replace that thought is to add some qualifiers like right now, or I feel that, everyone
Mhm.
is out to get me, or um, I'm struggling with the thought uh, that,
Yeah.
and then just repeat that automatic thought, or I'm exploring the thought, or um, I don't, I still believe this thought, but my therapist doesn't believe it. Or what I tell my daughter is, uh, I believe I'm a total failure, but my mother doesn't believe I'm a total failure. You know, uh, again, not the greatest thought, but it's definitely better than I'm a total failure.
That's a
Just,
funny one to throw out there too, because I've definitely done that where it's like I'm having a bad day. It's like it's okay, my mommy still loves me.
uh-huh, yeah. And actually, I like just that tag too, besides a qualifier, just a tag. Um, like, I'm scared of everything, but I'm only human.
Hmm.
I keep getting angry at the drop of a hat, and I'm not perfect, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, adding kind of qualifiers or kind of taglines to the end. I heard someone say, oh, I can't remember. They were embarrassed about like mispronouncing a word for their entire lives. Like I remember once what was it? I misused. Oh, I can't remember. Uh, but anyway, we've all done that, where we think the word
Hmm.
is epitome and really it's epitome or whatever. um,
Yep.
and so anyway, she was recounting something like that, and she was there like, "Oh my goodness, I have said that wrong my entire life." And the other person was kind of comforting her and saying all these kind of things that should have been comforting, but the other person was still going on and on about how embarrassing it was. And so the other person said
Hmm.
things like, everybody has a word like that, or the other people are probably who heard that are probably thinking maybe I had that word wrong, my entire life, or
Hmm.
listening. So the other people were just listening so much to the content of what you were saying, they probably didn't even notice. And none of those were really comforting the other person. So finally, the other person said, "It's not as bad as global warming," you know, uh, or nobody died from that. So sometimes if
Right.
you can't replace that thought, to just kind of go to the ridiculous end, you know.
It's a good
Uh,
use of hyperbole. Hyperbole?
yeah.
Hyperbole.
Yes. Hyperbole. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great, and it kind of lowers our anxiety.
Yeah.
If, my green bean story, if I say something like, you know, uh, I'm, what would I do if I were being forced to eat green beans for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Or
Hmm.
at least I'm not being forced to eat green beans for breakfast, lunch, and dinner,
Yeah.
which total squirrel. I read this book where these people, were actually, it was, crash landed on another planet, and all the food that was uh, that they could eat that was left was oatmeal and blue cheese dressing, which
Oh.
I know that's gross, but when you think about
Yeah.
it, you can live on that for a while. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if I think of the green beans in that situation, I say at least they're not, you know, oatmeal and blue cheese dressing, for so, and that kind of ridiculousness, is that true? That green beans are better than mixing blue cheese dressing into oatmeal? Oh my gosh, that's horrible, isn't it?
It
Even
sounds
saying
so
it, they're
bad.
like, "That's disgusting."
Texture, I'm almost smelling it at this point.
So, yeah, sometimes using that hyperbole or humor or
Mm.
ridiculousness helps us
Yeah.
recognize that automatic unhelpful thought. Uh, yeah, so that's in a nutshell, kind of automatic thoughts and how they can affect us. And again, looking back at traumas like the green bean trauma or the Burger King trauma, and again, those are silly
Mhm.
traumas. But if you look back at more serious traumas like you know, people are out to get me. It's not safe to be in this world. I can't trust anybody.
Mhm.
Because of that one time or those 7 times even that I couldn't trust people, and you replace that with, I'm older now and I can slow down and evaluate whether or not to trust people.
Mhm.
But yeah, not to jump to, I can trust everybody, um, which isn't true and isn't helpful. So that's one of the reasons why counselors talk about things that most people don't enjoy talking about. It's not just because counselors enjoy that, it's because they're trying to dig out some of those automatic thoughts so that you are aware of them and you can change them or not as you wish. But if you're not aware of them, you can't change them. And
Good point.
I'm going to end with kind of like, I guess, proof maybe that these automatic thoughts, even if you go all the way back to like biological reflexes, can be overcome. And my 2 examples are nurses run towards vomit, you know, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and firefighters run towards danger, So most of us see vomit and we recoil, but through kind of desire and training and repetition, nurses absolutely run towards disgusting bodily functions. And firefighters definitely run
That's a
towards
very good
danger.
point.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
the
so
nurses one though because a lot of the reactions we have are visceral, and so
yeah,
that one identifies well for me.
yeah. And again, definitely overcome. Definitely overcomable. So thinking of those automatic thoughts, replacing them with true and helpful. And I think nurses probably do that. They don't say, vomit is safe. They say, my mission is to help people who are sick, and I can still use universal cautions and wear gloves or,
Yeah.
be careful around it, but I'm going to run towards it. So next time or another time, Anna, I want to talk about some common themes in automatic thoughts, like we mentioned, just black and
Mm.
white thinking or overgeneralization. Um, and there's also, things like confirmation bias or there's like shoulds, what I should feel or what I should be doing. Or there's a lot of kind of patterns that those automatic thoughts tend to fall into that, again, at some point,
Mhm.
and in some situations are super helpful, and in a lot of situations aren't helpful at all. So that's our that's kind of my explanation and an explanation of the reasoning behind automatic thoughts and why counselors like to bring up unpleasant things that you might be thinking.
For more resources, shop at www.upandupwellness.com and hit that subscribe button. If you are in crisis and struggling right now, the national hotline is 988 and they can help you any time of the day or night.